Okay, welcome to episode 3. Here we are today. We're going to talk about Bruce's top 10 list. So I think you started. Did you start this last year, Bruce? You made a top 10 of things to watch out for.
Yeah, I published an article and on Arrival.Travel, posted it on LinkedIn, got some feedback. I think yours was probably the harshest, Christian. Imagine that. So yeah, I did it last year. It was fun, and I thought I should do it again and see how, if I go back and look a year, was I on or was I off? And I'm looking forward to hearing feedback from all of our panel here.
Excellent. So we're going to critique that or ridicule or give you kudos, whatever the case may be for those. We have 3, as well as Laurie here, we have 3 excellent guests joining us today. We have Dan from Maverick Helicopters, we have Robin from Holibob, and we have Carlee from GetYourGuide. So if we could jump over to you guys for a quick intro, I'll start with Carlee.
Hello. Carlee Stellfox Loya. I'm the Regional Director of Americas for GetYourGuide, based here in San Francisco.
Thanks, Carlee. Robin?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Robin Harnish. I'm the COO of Holibob, former VP of Marketing of Viator, and really excited to be talking with everybody today.
And last but not least, Dan.
Dan Flores with Maverick Helicopters. Locations in Hawaii, state of Arizona, and Las Vegas. And prior to that, I was with a golf company, but I've been at Maverick for almost 16 years.
Excellent. And Dan's also having his first Christmas with his newborn, so.
Just doing it. Loving life.
Excellent. What about the World Cup, guys? Who watched the game? Sitting, talking to a bunch of Americans here. How was that?
I mean, look, it can't get much better. It's why it's the world's most popular game and tournament. It was incredible, minus all of the stuff prior to it leading up with the location, how they got the World Cup. The games themselves were amazing, and that was the best final possibly ever, with 2 of the best players, one leaving and then one taking the torch with Mbappe of France. He's a video game character, just an amazing player. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, often the finals are a bit of a letdown after a World Cup, but yeah, I mean, I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen every World Cup final since '82, and that was absolutely the best. That was amazing. Hopefully we'll get some Americans to come in and watch the sport more now.
I think there were a lot of Americans that did watch this one because the U.S. was in the knockout round, and that kind of got the excitement going in that game. I always thought of soccer as like 0-0, 1-0. You have a 2-goal lead and you can't surpass it, and that sure changed really quickly. It was pretty awesome, and the way they do overtime, I'm like, why isn't overtime sudden death like every other sport? Well, actually, basketball and baseball are not sudden death, so there seemed to be a good reason. Why do they do this stupid shootout to win the World Cup? And I think the answer is all the players are so dead tired they couldn't play another 15 minutes. And the shootout was exciting. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, penalty shootouts are great when it's not your team. When it's your team and those things, I've been through enough of those with England. It's not fun. That's the most stressful time of my life. I've been through those.
All right, guys, I got to tell you this one thing I was reading, okay, before I forget, looking at the highlights, that this was the first World Cup where nobody from England or Wales was arrested because there was no drinking. There was no alcohol allowed in the stadium. So very first time in the history of the World Cup that nobody from England or Wales was arrested. And I saw that and I was like, okay, I got to say that is just classic.
That's proof that we're not bad people. It's just the alcohol. It's not our fault.
Yeah. That's right, Christian. Look at it in a positive way.
Yeah. Should we start on the top 10? Bruce, do you want to pull up the top 10 that you wrote a year ago? We'll just glance through these quickly. And if anybody's got any comments on mistakes that Bruce made with this a year ago and what he what he got right and what he got wrong. I don't want to go through each of these individually because we're going to focus on his new list. So what
these were
jumps
your
out here?
predictions, Bruce, right? For 2022.
This is what I wrote in December of 21. Like what was huge in 21 and what's going to be happening in 22. But it was mostly what I saw in 21 in this case when I wrote it. Yeah.
Okay. So not predictions. What you
this was
actually
already
felt
all,
were the top 10. Okay. Got it.
Of 21.
What does follow the money mean, Bruce? That's the only one I think is not obvious from looking at it.
Mm.
Actually, let me just read through for those not on the video. So number 10, time ticketing and attractions tech. 9, hiring and training. 8, immersive experiences. 7, adventure and outdoors. 6, follow the money. 5, DEI. 4, self-guided tours and tech. 3, Google things to do. 2, local, and 1, COVID. Okay, so who's got comments on what Bruce got right and wrong a year ago? Oh, one thing, Bruce, can you clarify what follow the money means?
Yeah.
Follow the money is really, where's the investment going? Who's getting investment dollars? Because it's been changing quite a bit. It's not all going to res techs and OTAs like it was before COVID. So there was a lot of different types of investment happening in 21. Fever was a really good example. I think they raised like $200 million. They're really, I guess they are kind of a new type of OTA. But that was all about where the money, because there was a lot of investment happening in 2020 and 2021, even despite COVID. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot more investment coming in 2022 as well. And we're going to actually have a whole show about investment with some really interesting speakers to speak to that.
So who are you saying then got the money in 21, Bruce?
To be honest with you, I'd have to go back and remember. I don't know. Should I have studied that?
Come on, Bruce. I mean, it's on your list.
That's an evergreen. Follow the money, right? So that's
Always follow
fine.
it.
It's on your list, but it's not that interesting.
Got
It's
it.
always.
I didn't go back and memorize what I wrote
All
a year
right,
ago.
okay.
Sorry, Lori.
All right.
I could probably look up the article. Yeah.
It's been a long year.
Yeah.
I guess I would question, did self-guided tours and tech, was it more than just talk?
That's an interesting question. Would love to hear your all answers on that one.
There's a lot of companies offering that, right? We speak to them all the time. I don't see massive growth in this space. You know, a lot came out right at the start of COVID, and there's a lot of talk about it. And I feel like it's been sort of flat since.
Yeah, I feel that's one of those things where it was a great idea. There were some companies that made some money during COVID and right at the very beginning when everyone was talking about it, but it's fizzling away. And people are going back to wanting a guide, going back to their traditional programs. You know, it was what was the 2020 pivot? You know, oh, we pivoted, we did this, we pivoted. Okay, well, I'd like a human being back to telling me about what's happening and showing me around whatever I'm, touring or looking at.
But is it really going away, Dan? I mean, what percent of people, and I'm sure none of us have this data point, but what percent of people go visit a city and never take a tour, right? They just walk around the city. They're not really even sure what they're looking at. They don't know about the history, culture, but that's what they want to do. They want to be on their own calendar, their own schedule. I mean, what do you guys think the percentage of people are that do that just visit a city with no tour?
I mean,
I don't know. We need to get Andy Lawrence on this, but I do think that there are definitely those companies where, like for instance, Fox is obviously one of them. And Clio Muse is another one. I mean, they're doing well. They did well. And that now we're kind of moving off of 21 a little bit, but they did well this year. And I think there's a place for them for sure in the future. I think it's virtual that came out during COVID that then has really fizzled out. That's what we saw like popping out at COVID is all of a sudden, oh, let's sit at home and take a tour. And that's more of
what I'm talking about in my list. I'm not talking about virtual. I'm talking about,
I know.
Boxes and VidiGuides of the world who are really doing well. They're getting investment capital. And I think there is a huge percentage of people that go to a city and they don't want to take a tour, but if they could get a self-guided tour for $10, that's a pretty interesting thing. So that's why it was on the list then.
I think it also merges, I don't know if this is local, but I'm not sure if the new Vox app is out yet, but it's much more of a local experience now where you can buy attractions along the way, and it's very geo-based. It's kind of an immersive app almost, and there's other examples of that as well. So this almost blends in. I think that's the future, where you get these immersive, it's a bad word probably, but these immersive apps where you can buy stuff along the way. I remember, in the hop on hop off days when we would be fighting with Big Bus and Grey Line and three others, and I think it was 6% or 7% of people took a hop on hop off tour, and I'd always tell the staff, let's focus on the 94% who don't take any double-decker bus tour, not just focus on our biggest competitor. I think that's what you're saying, Bruce, is most people actually not taking sightseeing tours. They're just arriving in a place, wandering around for 3 days and leaving again.
And that, like, the tour operator's biggest competitor are people that don't take tours, right? Like, that's a really valid point.
Yeah.
I think local, you definitely got that right.
City-centric view though, guys. I mean, that might be true for people traveling to cities, but that doesn't necessarily cover people traveling more rurally. Certainly not going to the parks.
Well, you go to a national park, are you taking a tour?
Well, you might be doing an activity, rafting, hiking, something like that requires a permit or a guide, experience guide, right? So yeah, you could say there's people, well, certainly there are people going to cities and not doing tours, but I think saying that there's a large percentage of people that are going and not doing any sort of in-destination activity is kind of a city-centric.
But I think that's different. An in-city or an in-destination activity or attraction is different than a self-guided tour, and using it that way specifically. Because I mean, a lot of people do that. They go places. I mean, I'm one of them. I like to do things. I don't want to go on a tour self-guided or not. It's not that it's a bad product. It's just that's not what I like to do. And I think I was talking about, like, you've just seen it kind of fade off a little bit. There was so much talk about it, and it was going to be like the next new thing to where we could get rid of tour guides. We could get rid. No, that's a very, very important part of touring things. It's just now it's an option that's out there. So I think it might still be on the list, but it's dropped dramatically.
So what about this, Dan? I mean, do you think that the appeal of the self-guided is more that it is self-guided, or more that it's just you pick the start time, you pick the end time, totally flexible? Like, what is the appeal there for you as someone who says you don't necessarily book activities?
It would be flexibility.
Okay.
To start whenever I want, and honestly, to turn it off whenever I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the product's still not there. When you mentioned parks, Carlee, I always think about Yosemite. So I've been to Yosemite a couple hundred times, but if I go there as a tourist, I want my phone just to pop in and say, "Oh, don't miss the waterfall on the right." It doesn't need to be I don't want to sit there and download a thing and buy a thing and do this whole structured product. But I do want my phone to make sure I don't miss stuff. Maybe the tech's not there yet. I think people like Vox and others are approaching this space, and we may get there. Also, there's a company called Spinach. I don't know if you've seen them. They were previously Go-Car in Lisbon. They've got the little motorized electric car now that takes you around the city, which is all digital and tells you where things are. And
I know Spinach very well. They're going to be in Berlin at our event, and Orlando, and they're ready to go big. And it's a GPS guided tour. So they provide the electric car and give you the GPS tour software that's part of it and put you on a tour. So that's
Go-Car, guys. Go-Car. They've been around forever.
Yeah. Well, the Spinach guy was a Go-Car franchisee, and now he's taking it to Europe, basically, and beyond. Yeah. Okay. Let's not spend too much time on self-guided tours. It was only number 4.
So I want to move to your next list, Bruce. I just want to say
let's do that. COVID
was number 1 a year ago because we were in the depths of Omicron, and I think, fortunately for most in the industry, it wasn't the biggest factor of 22. I know for a lot of people it still was, but I think fortunately that did drop off. But let's look at your next at the list which you created, I think probably this week, and we've only done 10 to 4 because our 3 guests are going to guess They're going to tell us the three that are going to be in the top three when we get there. I think those are all. I think we understand those. Who's got comments on which of those should or should not be on there?
Bruce, I'm kind of curious why DEI dropped so far down your list to number 9. And I think sustainability is an ad from your previous list. Right?
Yeah, I didn't have sustainability on there before, but I just kind of bucketing them together. And the reason I dropped it on my list was because I think our industry likes to talk about it a lot, but they're not doing it yet. And my best evidence of that is Arrival in Vegas. We had 4 DEI breakouts, and we had a sustainability breakout with fantastic presenters, really engaging content, and the average attendance was 15 to 20 people per breakout versus a typical breakout of 75 to 100 people. So I think it's a lot of companies are not yet walking the talk of DEI and sustainability. So I wanted to make sure we kept it on the list. It's critical. We all have to really think about it, but I don't feel like our industry is really walking the talk at this point.
I think that
I agree with you
what
100%.
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Dan. I actually think it'd be great to hear from you. Dan, maybe you can just explain to people a little bit about what your role is at Tourism Cares, because I think that is important to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm the committee chair for the development of Tourism Cares. And Bruce, you're 100% right. I think right now the majority of our industry is doing it to check a box, right? Like, look, we have a DEI committee. We like sustainability. It's fine, but none of them are not. I wouldn't say none of them. Not a lot. The majority are not making that step to involve their daily, operations in it, and taking that next step of saying, we will only partner with people that have a true sustainability plan or a DEI plan. And that's unfortunate. So it needs to stay on the list because people like myself, Lori is on our committee at Tourism Cares. There's lots of different organizations throughout the tourism space that are, pushing to make this, relevant to major tourism. But unfortunately, it's not right now. Not enough people are actually putting that forward of what they're doing on a daily basis.
There's this data point out there. I don't know who did the research that 80% of people, consumers, say they'll pay more if they know the product is sustainable. I don't think they really talked about DEI or talking about sustainability. So 80% of people will pay more for it. But that's not true. I mean, tell me, Carlee, have you seen that with GetYourGuide? I don't know if you're showing which tours are more sustainable, but that is not happening. It's easy to say on a survey, sure, I'll pay more. It's a lot harder to take extra money out and put it on your credit card when you book the tour, isn't it?
Well, I don't think our industry has done a good job yet of standardizing, certifying, and surfacing what we actually mean by that. What do we mean by sustainability? We don't even agree. So I'm not sure you can answer, are people actually putting their money where their mouth is, until we're able to have data we can actually say proves or disproves if that's happening. So
I also think the experiences part of the travel industry is further behind in this regard. I feel like the rest of the wider travel industry is paying way more attention to sustainability. And I do think we have made some improvement in that regard, even if it's just talking about it, knowledge, seeing it. It's everywhere right now. But the experiences side of the business is definitely further behind in this, for sure.
But I do agree, the operators need to understand that is important to their consumers before they're going to do something about it. I mean, they've got, they have so many other things to focus on, and, they've got to know that that's the next big thing that they need to pay attention to and focus on.
So that's why I moved it down to 9.
I just want to say, Bruce, that I had a call. I brought together a few folks in this space who are experts, including travelers, to put the standards together for the hotel side. And it's just difficult in tours and activities to come up with standards. I think it does need to start with standards. And Dan, as you can imagine, the helicopter thing comes up. You know, how do you compare a helicopter company with a local bike tour company and put standards out there and compare them? It's just really difficult because our industry is so fragmented, and you know, a hotel is a very simple product, so is an aeroplane compared to tours and activities. So it is difficult, but I do think we need to start there so that people can compare and look at buying the right product. So what else has moved here? We've got immersive experiences moved up the list by a few places. Is that fair?
Local moved quite a bit, didn't it?
Local moved down by a lot of places.
By a lot of places.
Yeah, tell us about that, Bruce.
Well, you know, the fact is local, what did I have it last time? I could go back probably like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
It had just, when COVID was ruling the travel world, everybody was local and no one was getting on airplanes to go international. So that's what it was in 2021. So by moving it up the list, my thinking is we are getting more outside of local. Local will always be important. And I think that's something that operators saw a lot more now than they saw pre-COVID. So local doesn't go down in importance. It's just, it wasn't ruling like it was pre-COVID. So that's my point there. So where was it? Local was number 2. Yeah, so that's a big difference, right? But I think you would all agree that local in 21, that's where you're getting your business and your bookings, because no one was going international, and not even so much even hopping on planes. So that's how we got to that.
Yeah.
So what about immersive, Bruce? Why's immersive gone up?
Yeah, that one surprises me to jump to number 4.
Well, I'm bullish on immersive. And we're going to have a whole show on immersive. Got some guest speakers who've already agreed to come that are going to rock this topic. And you know, just seeing Meow Wolf at Arrival, for example, and what Vince Kadublik, who's one of the founders, talk about their perspective at Meow Wolf, seeing some of the other immersive experiences that are out there. I just think the genie's out of the bottle and we're not coming back. One question that would be interesting is, what is an immersive experience? I mean, I forget what you were talking about, Christian, when you were explaining something about it, what you were calling an immersive experience. You know, what is an immersive experience? But there's so many people now looking to create new kinds of attractions where you as the customer really get immersed. You know, there's a David Byrne show, I'll have to look up the name, playing here in Denver, where it's all about your sight, your sound, your smell. It's only 20 people that are allowed in the show at the same time, you know, ballpark, super immersive experience. I think that's a lot different than going to a museum and putting on a headset or a self-guided tour and walking around and looking at paintings. So
I feel like that's going to hit more of the local, like I'm going to be interested in more of those I live in Seattle. Like when I see them pop up in Seattle, I don't know if I'm going to want to do one of those every time I'm out traveling, you know, maybe in some cases, but I just wonder how often I want to do those and what's the repeat of wanting to do one after another of those versus.
Because you could do that anywhere, right, Robin? You could do, it's the same. It's often in a square room.
Mm-hmm.
So like watching a movie, you can also do at home. So people don't tend to do it when they travel, I guess is the argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the thing, like, you know, Bruce just said, you know, what is an immersive? I mean, it always goes back to that way of marketing, right? You can pretty much make anything look the way you want it to. I mean, what is an immersive experience? You can go to an aquarium and feed the fish. You having an immersive experience, or you not? You know, so yeah, there's the Meow Wolf. That's on the whole other spectrum of what an immersive experience is. I personally don't think that I have that in my top 10. I think there's too many other important things that belong in the top 10. Immersive, I really think that it's here to stay. It's interesting. It's a great buzzword too, but is it in the top 10? Maybe not for me.
I hope Anna doesn't watch this show.
Okay, so we've got 3 missing. So I'm going to pick on our 3 guests, and you're each going to give us one of the items that are missing. I'm going to start with Dan.
Are we supposed to say what we think Bruce is going to pick?
Yeah, let's do that because
No, I think it should be
Short
guys
form
should pick.
video.
What's that? Short form video?
Short form video. I think that's going to be 1, 2, and 3 on Bruce's list.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Robin, have you got a different one?
Well, I think Google Things to Do is still going to be there, and with some of the new enhancements that they're making, and really trying to focus on like the actual tours and not just attractions. I think that's got to be in the top 3 again. Maybe even number 1 if we really think that they're gonna hit it out of the park for this coming year. I definitely think that, but I agree on video too.
Carlee, I'm sorry, you're last. You got 2 taken away from you. You got the last one if they were correct.
That was you, Carlee.
Well, sorry. Yeah, I agree about short form video, 100%. But I think it's going to be last minute rules. I think we are seeing so much research coming out about digitization, how it's pushing people to last minute bookings. I think the clear winners of 2023 are going to be all the operators and attractions who can nail last minute bookings.
Interesting.
I
Bruce,
like
are
that
you ready
one.
for the reveal?
Not quite, because we didn't even talk about my current favorite topic, which is generative AI. And to me, that's like number 5 with a bullet. Like, depending on where that goes, easily be number 1 by the end of the year, in my opinion. Christian's been playing with it a lot. I've been playing with it a little. Lori's been playing with it a little. You guys have been playing with it to see what this thing's all about. It's mind-blowing, right? It's totally mind-blowing. And I don't think we really know how it's going to impact the experiences industry yet, which is why it's really exciting too. So I left it at 5 because I think it might take a little while. 5's still pretty high, right, in this list overall. So I just
I listened to it. I was talking to somebody about AI. That's what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks. But somebody just said, listen, the thing that really changed 2 weeks ago was that they made a UX, right? They made it accessible to the millions. And I'm trying to compare it to when the internet came out. It took people years to get going on the internet and create websites. And I know Robin remembers this because Viator kind of took advantage of that. And that's how Viator got so successful pretty quick. But I think AI is different because it does the work for you. You don't have to go work out how to build a website. AI is the work. So I think this is going to catch on much quicker than other new technology. And the other interesting piece is just the difference that a UX makes. So you can make a great product, and GPT was also great a year ago. Nobody talked about it that much. As soon as you put a form out and people can play with it, that's accessible, and you haven't got to go through a big thing to start playing with it, everyone starts talking about it. So just the importance of a UX in the adoption of a product, I thought was an interesting angle there.
You know what else I found really interesting about it, because it only came out, that new UX a couple of weeks ago, right? Maybe a week and a half ago, was how quickly the naysayers came out. Oh, they're never going to be able to write a good blog post, or, oh, it's never going to be able to write a good tour description. I mean, the naysayers were out. It reminded me of 1994. The travel agents were all the naysayers saying, oh, Expedia is never going to be able to book an airline ticket or a hotel room, right? I really feel like that's where we are. There will be so many applications on top of this that smart, innovative companies will build that the rest of us will be able to take advantage of. Like I said, I think we're at the first batter of the first inning, and he hasn't even swung his bat yet. It's so early, but to me, it's really exciting. So that's why
I think though, just like what you just said about the travel agent and OTAs, there's a space for both, right? What can an amazing content writer and an amazing AI technology do together? And I think that's what we'll start to see, probably not this next year, but years to go, because there's a lot of travel agents right now, they use OTAs, and there's a space for both. So we'll see. It's exciting, actually.
Well, there's no doubt, I think, Dan, right, that I can use AI to get me 80% of the way there to what I'm trying to do, whether it's a blog post or a description or whatever. And then I need to take my own ideas and pile on to that 80%, but it just saved me that 80%. I think that is, and I think that's this year. I don't think that's next year.
And I think some of
we won't even know. Douglas's son is a junior in high school, and last week he submitted a paper to his professor using strictly GPT, and the professor had no clue.
Until now.
Yeah.
What's that?
He just got kicked out of school over Christmas.
I didn't say Douglas's last name, so we're good. Okay.
Yeah. No one knows his last name, Bruce.
So here's my big reveal. Short form video, very good. You all named that. Google things to do. Robin named that. I don't know if Dan or Carlee did. I did not go last minute. I totally buy that. I could see that being in there. Hiring, training, retaining did not come up, but obviously that's a pretty big issue. So I put it right up there. What was the other one that one of you mentioned that didn't hit this last three?
The last minute, Carlee mentioned.
Yeah, the last minute. I totally
like
get that. Yeah.
I think another one, Bruce. I mean, honestly, OTAs should be on this list.
Just OTAs? Is that what you got?
Well, I mean, OTAs, the money they raised, big this past year in all the, so many of the publications spoke about OTAs in one way, shape, or form. Different, search, how they were using video, how much money they were raising. It just a lot of conversation around OTAs. So I actually do think they belong in the top 10 for this year.
I think connectivity technology.
Yeah,
is something that should be
attractions.
on
Well,
there
attractions
because,
tech, yeah.
well, but it's a little bit different because what we've seen and what we're starting to see, and I don't know, I'm sure you guys have been watching, but there's some big connectivity switches and GDSs that are starting, that live in the legacy world of airlines and hotels that are starting to dip their toes into the activity space. They're starting with ticketing. DerbySoft just announced that they've have some ticketing options. I know Travelport Destinations. That is going to be big once they fully get into being able to connect tours and activities to big global travel companies, legacy travel companies, and you can literally put your hotel, your air, and your activity on the same connected itinerary. I think that's going to be big.
Yeah,
Amadeus
doing it now. As a department working on it as well. But the GDSs are so slow. But I somehow missed connectivity. I don't know how. I can't believe Robin or Christian didn't bring that up.
Well, we haven't really beaten you up on this yet, Bruce. I don't know what you
All right, well, bring it on. I don't know how much time we have left. Probably not a lot. So go ahead, Christian.
Well, there's one obvious one. For me, there's two. You didn't mention the economy, which, inflation and the economy, I think, is going to be the big thing of the next year for most Western economies. It's going to be the subject. And then linked to that, for me, you didn't mention China. China's maybe more interesting than should be on the list. I think just the fact that we've got no idea if the Chinese are going to travel again ever. It's possible they may never get out of their country again. It's all down to one guy and what he decides to do. That's affecting a lot of people. It's affecting all of Asia. I think Thailand was 60% Chinese travelers or something pre-COVID, and they're living in a place where they may never get that back. And also a lot of Western countries as well. We're not also just Western focused, but it was a big part of people's travel, and it's a big unknown right now, as well as the economy is.
I buy all that, but I didn't hit 10. And I guess I wasn't thinking as big picture as you were. Right?
Yeah, on a less serious topic, I was thinking, how much more online booking are we going to see really come to the forefront? We saw a big jump over COVID, but are we going to see that continue to really ramp up and spike. If we see that combination of last minute in destination, you know, are we going to see more of that be online and really continue to see that increase?
I think we will. We may see it in a little bit of a different way. I think, you know, you're going to see more of the inspiration, you know, kind of that, you know, search, inspire, booking type of platform, live videos, people booking right from there, you know, so all that stuff is coming probably 23, I think. And I think, yeah, I think we're gonna continue to see that kind of investment happening in this space for sure.
One thing I would add to your local, Bruce, is not just local, but domestic, and specifically referring to this cohort, speak about Americans who did domestic travel and are now going to be a second and third time visitor to a market that maybe they would not have been a second or third time visitor to a market before. And what does that look like for the experiences community to really innovate and reach a visitor who came for the first time during COVID because it was kind of their only option? Maybe they got in their car and drove, and then they had a great time and they want to come back, but they've done the big iconic thing there. And so they're looking for something else. So I would expand your local into actually second and third time visitors and what the desires are of that cohort of travelers.
I'd like to add to that, because I think there's also a part that there was destinations and companies that had their best years ever between 2020 and 2021 because we were landlocked essentially.
Yeah.
And once, you know, traditional travel is back, we can go wherever we want to go. Are they going to be as busy? You know, and have they prepared for that? What are they seeing? Have they expanded out their marketing, you know, where they're reaching out to? Because for a while there, they didn't have to really do much. And it, you know, I was happy for them, but in some destinations we were totally closed. It was like, well, cool, but it's not going to stay that way. And I think 2023 is going to see some of that decline for some of these areas around the country.
Very good.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Bruce, you got fairly good feedback on your list.
Surprisingly, huh?
No massive errors. No one wants to beat you up too badly. Maybe we'll save that for a LinkedIn post or something.
Right, we can do that. But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously the economy and China are two huge things that I didn't include, but makes sense. Like, I actually think I'd probably prefer not to think too hard about it. Similar to, you know, the impacts of a war in Ukraine. Those are just like such big issues. I've tried to focus mostly on the part that we can control within this experiences industry.
The only other thing I thought of, Bruce, was when I looked at your 2021 list and it said COVID, I thought, well, the next year it's about travel recovery too. I mean, that's a big thing. That's like all anybody talked about: travel recovery. You know, we're back to pre-pandemic levels. I mean, so as part of a maybe it wasn't necessarily on the top 10, but it was definitely something I felt like if COVID was on the list, why wasn't travel comeback on the list?
Well, COVID was on last year's list. I didn't include it on this year's list.
Right, exactly.
Although, given what's happening right now, you know, I just was on an airplane this weekend, and 25% of people were wearing masks in the airport and on the airplanes.
Oh yeah. Those are flu masks, Bruce. Those aren't COVID masks.
Well, they're masks. That's right. They're for anything. That is true. That is true.
Well, yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining today. I've enjoyed going through these items, and we'll revisit this again in a year, hopefully, to see how badly Bruce got it right or wrong.
That would be fun, actually, wouldn't it? Huh? Make a little anniversary show. Yeah. Good idea.
Thanks, everyone. Really
all right. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks,
everybody.
We'll be live sometime in the next 24 hours on this story. Although by the time you see this, it won't be 24 hours from then. That's a silly thing to say, but okay.
Okay, bye.
Hey, thanks a lot, everyone. Have a
Good holiday.
wonderful,
Okay.
yeah, wonderful holiday.